Hey, what's up out there, YouTube? Double D here with Tournage Dubois. Welcome back. Today we are doing a big upgrade in the shop. So as you know, I just started turning just a few years back. It's a little over 3 years actually. So not long into my journey, I transitioned from a Harbor Freight benchtop lathe up to a Jet 1642 that I bought from my buddy Bill. I got to be really good friends with him, and so that has helped inspire me with getting to know him, talking to him, talking through processes and things, but also just knowing how much this lathe was loved by him before it came to me. So this is the Jet 1642 that I got from Bill. So first of all, big thank you, Bill. But today is a big step for me because today is my first real monster upgrade. So this is this one is moving out, gonna go on to a new home. I'm in the process of selling that, so I know it will be taken care of and loved as much as Bill and I loved this lathe. But regardless, it is time to upgrade. So we're gonna jump right into walking through the new lathe. I'll be installing it here, and then we'll come back and walk through everything. I'm not gonna show you the install. So Sid over at Sid's Repurposing, I'm gonna put a link to his video right up here. He did a great video unboxing and installing the exact same lathe, just under a different brand because it's in Australia, and a walk through there. So that's one I watched, really appreciated it. Definitely go check that out too if you have questions about how to set it up, installing, unboxing, etc. Definitely go check out Sid's channel and subscribe to him if you haven't. But I will be back after the new lathe is installed and we'll walk through it. See you in a minute. Hey, welcome back into the shop. So a couple of things. We did in preparation for the new lathe, which I'll get to in just a moment. I know y'all are dying to see that. Trust me, I'm dying to use it. Haven't touched it yet other than to test the turn on, go through some different things, but really excited about it, but we'll get to it. Did a complete rearrange of everything in the shop. The only thing that did not move was the red Craftsman workbench that's right inside the entrance door. So this wood rack, took everything off, moved it down just about 6 inches, nothing major, but then put everything back on. The bandsaw got moved right next to that, where it was on the opposite wall. Next to that was a little workbench table. The sharpening station was on the other side of the lathe, so over this way. That cabinet with all the drawers here, that was underneath the Craftsman table over here. Here is now where the table is. Obviously, I'm getting things organized, cleaned up, etc. Trying to get myself into workbench. So here where the bandsaw was the upright freezer. Originally was the table saw. Then became the upright freezer. The upright freezer is now over here where the dishwasher, kiln, and refrigerator sat, along with the sharpening station. So the sharpening station was there. The dishwasher kiln, which I don't need anymore and gave to one of my club buddies, and then the refrigerator was on top of that. So we have the kiln, so we'll get to that in just a moment. But I want to introduce you all to Sully, as in James P. Sullivan from Monsters Incorporated. I'll put a little image of him right up here, but he's the big blue monster from Monsters Incorporated. This is the Rikon 70-30-40. So it is an absolute beast. It weighs approximately 570 pounds, give or take, depending on what I put on it. I'll be putting my magnets back on it with the jaws and things like that. So just a quick overview. This will turn up to 30 inches in diameter. So the 30 is the biggest diameter it will turn, and then the 40 is the longest spindle length. Now obviously, as you look at it right now, that is not 40 inches. But this has a sliding bed on it, so the top bed will actually slide down and it will give us more room. I'll set up and show you that in just a moment. But I want to go over a few of the things. This comes with a 3 horsepower motor. There are 3 gears, and I'll walk through how to change that here, but this is the highest speed gear, medium speed gear, low speed gear. This has, Rikon refers to this as a spindle lock, but don't ever use it as a spindle lock. This is an indexer, and I'll show you how that works as well. So to change the gears, you'll actually get into both of these drawers, or sorry, you'll get into both of these doors and move the belt around, and I'll show you through that as well. This has a massive banjo on it, a 12-inch tool rest. The control box, which is right here, is actually magnetic, and the magnets are quite strong, but you can actually put it anywhere you want on the lathe, depending on where you're working, for ease of access, safety, to be able to turn that off at a moment's notice. Inside the tail rest, which this is the sharpest live center I've ever found, is a spot where you can put your live center and your drive center, your drive spur, if you choose to do so when you're not using them. So that is a real brief overview of this. I will set up the tripod here in just a moment, and I will walk you through the different settings. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over the control box here. Let me move the banjo out of the way a little bit. So we have our forward and reverse. This lower knob here is going to control the sliding bed that we'll show you how that works. This switch is going to tell the lathe to either the motor, the transmission, to move everything to be either off, in forward, or in reverse. So you can switch directions. This is the emergency stop, or even just the regular stop button. To get it to work, you just pull it out, and then we'll hit the green button to go. And then this knob is going to change our speed. So it was at the highest speed setting. So we literally put this into forward. When we hit the green button, you can see the lathe turn on. Right now it says it's running at 80 RPM. Now you're going to probably see that flashing because the refresh rate on the LCD screen is going to be different than the shutter speed or the frame rate on the camera. So you'll see that flicker at times. But then you can just, so then all you do is you use the knob, and we're going to increase the speed. And that is just super fast. So that is right now running at 4,000 RPM. The display says 3,990, so it's real close, but super duper fast. Slows down really easily, but you can just hit that red button to turn it, to shut it down, and it will stop working. Okay, so we're going to show you how the bedway moves. So it's got a locking handle here to lock the bedway down. That handle is nice and sturdy, so you just let it raise it up. And then on the control panel, so right here, we're just going to take this and we're going to twist it to the side to make it go forward. So you have to hold this button down to get it to keep moving. If you let up on it, it will stop. When you get to the end of how far it can go out, that it will stop automatically no matter if you keep holding the button down or not, or the toggle rather. So now that we have that extended out, we're going to measure from the bedways up to the middle of the spindle, and it is 15 5/8 of an inch. So we're looking at just over 31-inch diameter pre-cut. So that's really a really big, good size. So now you can see between the headstock and the tailstock, right now it's at 35 inches, but I do not have the tailstock all the way to the end of the bed. So we've got some room. It's going to turn some pretty big things, and that's much longer than probably anything I will ever need to turn. All right, so now I'm going to show you how we're going to adjust the gears on this. So to adjust the gears, we're going to use this handle. It's actually super duper easy. So this is, right now, it's set back, which means this motor is locked down tight. What we do is we loosen this, and then all we have to do is we push down, and we're going to move that motor. You can see that motor move just a little bit. And all we're doing there by doing it that way is we are making that, relieving the tension on the belts. So if I go in under here and we look, sorry there's not a ton of light, but when I do that, you can see that that tension loosens on that belt just a little bit. And then this is the view from the top. So when we push on that handle, you can see that belt loosen. And all we're going to do is we're going to move it from pulley to pulley. So we've got the tension released on the motor. So we're just going to move the belt. I'm going to move the bottom one first because it's going from the biggest gear on the bottom, smaller, which gives me room up here to move this one over. So it's moved over, we're on there, and then we just release the tension on the motor and lock it in, and it is good and tight, and that will be right back to working. So it's super quick and easy to change the belt speed on this to put yourself in the speed that you need to be in. So the next thing I want to go over is the indexer. As you can see, there are numbers on this dial. It goes from 1 all the way up to 36. So there are 36 different positions. Now, as we know, a circle is 360 degrees, so this is every 10 degrees on the spindle when we're measuring things out. If we're going to do any sort of measuring, or we want to do something like that to get an even spacing on a piece, this is a really easy way to do it. So what we have here, this is the indexer. Right now it's in a locked position, and if we look here, you can see there's a little spindle lock, that little spindle lock right down here. I don't know how well we can see that with the light, but it is locked in away from the wheel. If we turn this knob, there's a little hole. You can see that dial, the little notch on the back of the dial. If we turn it to where it's down in this hole and will drop in, we now see right here that that spindle lock is going in to touch the wheel. If we rotate the wheel just a little bit, that is now locked in, and this is not going to move at all. So you can mark your piece very easily. So if we want to move it one position, we just pull this knob out, rotate it one position, and lock it back in. It's not going to move. We make our mark on our piece. We're going to do the exact same thing. Just pop it out, move it one position, lock it back in. And you do that all the way around to do all the marking. So this is really helpful with some basket illusions, depending on how big of a gap you want. This is going to be every 10 degrees, like I said, because it's 36 points. It's a lot more than I've had before, but for some basket illusions, you want even more than that. So keep that in mind, but this indexer is a really good option. Like I said, they will refer to this in the manual as a spindle lock, but don't ever use it to lock the spindle because it's not going to hold. It's just not meant for that. Now, some of you might be wondering why I changed the orientation of the lathe, because the lathe used to run this direction along the wall, if you remember watching any of my videos. I changed the orientation for two reasons. Number one, this lathe is going to extend out, and it's going to extend out into dead space as opposed to running into the kiln or anything like that that I've moved around or have over there. So this gives me more shop space overall. The second reason, and to me this is the most important, when I'm hollowing, sometimes reaching back across the piece as you're cutting back in this direction is not that comfortable. So what I can do now is I can take the banjo, flip it around to the other side, and now I can hollow in a normal turning fashion across the lathe to get better cuts that way. So this gives me access to both sides, which will give me better hollowing techniques and potentially better cuts without having to put the lathe into reverse to do that, like I've done a few times. It's a really cool option, but I do like the accessibility. The other benefit, it makes it easier to clean underneath the lathe rather than just let it pile up against the wall where you can't get a broom. At any rate, super happy with the accessibility that I have by having it at this angle. So I'm really glad I made that change. Now the other thing that's really nice is they put a bar across on both ends on the leg, so you can have one shelf there, and then you can build a second shelf up a little bit higher. So you can have two shelves here with wood blanks or anything to add additional weight. I will tell you, I cannot move this lathe as it is by myself. This thing is so heavy, I don't foresee it moving too much. In the event that it might, I can always add weight to it by putting in those shelves. So just another really cool feature and added benefit by having the ability to put extra weight onto the lathe if necessary. Now the last couple of things I'm going to show you down here is this pull handle. So if you disconnect the motor that drives the screw that moves this out, you can actually move this by hand if you choose to with that lock, and then lock it down with the bed lock. The other thing is this piece right here. If you undo this, you can rotate this washer back up, and it will keep the tailstock from being able to slide off. So if you need to slide that off, you just loosen this screw, move the washer out of the way, and then the tailstock will slide on and off very, very easily. At any rate, that is a quick walkthrough of the Rikon 70-30-40. I'm super excited to get some pieces on here and get to turning, so we will be on that pretty soon. Wanted to give a walkthrough, but now let's jump over to the kiln and I'll walk you through what I did there. Alright, so this is the upright freezer kiln that I've been working on with my buddy Jimmy, so big thanks to Jimmy for that. This is modeled very similarly after how Jim Sprague did his kiln, and I'll put a link to his video right up here in the corner. Sorry, it's going to be right up here in the corner. One of the two, going to be in one of the corners. But I'll put a link to Jim Sprague's video there. What happens is the kiln is plugged in. In the bottom of the kiln is a light bulb, and so that is on all the time. It is just plugged into raw power, so that light, like I said, is on all the time. I have the ink bird here, and that is set to 110 degrees. Right now, it's showing 102 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is flickering because the refresh rate on those LEDs are different than the refresh rate for the camera. It is heating right now because it's working its way up to 110 degrees. I am going to make some baffles for this so it covers it up to help trap some of that air in, and I can open that as we need to. But then plugged into the cooling side of this, there's a heating side and a cooling side. Plugged into the cooling side is a fan. So right up here I have a bathroom fan that vents out, and any moisture that gets pushed out, I'm having it drain into this trash can so I can dump it rather than have any moisture caught in the kiln, if at all possible. But what happens is when that thermostat hits over that temperature that I have it set, the fan will kick on, pull air out, pull fresh air in, and that will keep it running close to the temperature that I have asked it to be. So that is a quick overview of how this was done. I have an air hole here, just a little piece of cardboard over it, but that's an air vent. We cut the hole in the top for the freezer, or for the fan. So we cut the top in the hole in the freezer for the fan, and then we put a couple of vent holes in it to pull air in so it would run through. And then the thermostat is run in through here and is against the ceiling of the piece, so it tracks inside the ceiling. It tracks the absolute highest point, which is going to be the warmest temperature. But that's the overview of the freezer kiln. Big thank you to my in-laws for giving me this old kiln this old freezer that obviously isn't working, and it's going to work great, and we'll get pieces dried out even faster than if they're just sitting in the shop. So hey, really hope you enjoyed the walkthrough of the new lathe. Ask any questions down below, I'll answer them. I'm going to put a link to Sid's repurposing video right up here in the corner. He's one that did a really good walkthrough of the Australian version of this exact same lathe. He also shows how he unboxed it and the assembly of it. He used an engine hoist. I was blessed by having 4 of my friends come over, so huge thanks to Evan, Hayden, Jim, and Jack in no particular order. Thank you. It took all 5 of us to move this behemoth in and get it set up, so huge shout out, big thank you to both of you for that. Without the Mulvane Art Fair happening last month or earlier this month, there's no way I would have been able to afford this, so I'm really grateful for the way that show went. Allowed me to get this and make more things. I also would like to extend a huge thank you to Bill and Marcia Schultz. Bill, you have been an inspiration to me. I appreciate you selling me the jet. I appreciate the care that you took in finding it a good home when you upgraded. I'm doing the exact same with that jet. I'm going to find it a good home so it will continue to be in use for a long, long time. It was a great lathe. I appreciate everything I learned on it, and I appreciate you and your availability to talk me through questions I had and inspire me with your beautiful work. So thank you. If this is your first time here, please do consider subscribing. I try to put out content every week. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If not, give it a thumbs down. Leave your comments, feedback down below. I appreciate and read every one of them, and I do respond. It's how I grow. And we'll catch you all next time.